All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us here today at our Small Business Solutions series. We are excited about this topic because it is something that I think everyone has to deal with at least one or two times, but probably well more than that in terms of scams, cybersecurity, how do you stave off those kinds of threats and keep not only yourself and your business, but your customers safe. So very excited to have AJ with us here this morning. I want to take a minute to thank our Small Business Solutions Series sponsor, David Yasa, he's the growth coach of Greater Portland. I don't see him joining us yet, but we will circle back around and give him a little spotlight at the end if he is able to join us. But I'm going to take advantage of as much time as we can to get and have you get as much information as you can from AJ Bustamante with Northwest Computer Solutions. I'm very excited to have you here with us, AJ. And I think, again, this is a very timely topic as we go into the holidays. It just kind of seems like, nothing brings forward more attempts at fraud than the holiday season. So kind of warms your heart, doesn't it? AJ, I'm going to turn it over to you. Hopefully, everybody's had a chance to read the bio that went out promoting this event. We're not going to run through that just to make best use of everybody's time. And AJ, the floor is yours.
All right, I appreciate that. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen then. First things first, can everyone see my screen?
Got
Perfect.
it.
Okay. So then, again, really just appreciate you all taking the time. And, AJ Bustamante, I'm the director of sales and marketing with Northwest Computer Solutions, but really just a huge advocate of the chamber as a whole. So I want to start by thanking you, Deanna, for your long tenure here with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. Also, putting this together, David Yasa, if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have even gone into business. And so definitely appreciate our sponsor in the growth coach of the Greater Portland metro area. And then again, want to thank all of you for joining us for this episode on our Small Business Solutions series today, because today we're going to be talking about cybersecurity for small business. But before we do that, I just want to share with you this extremely important topic, which is the holiday season. Per Deanna's notation there, she's spot on. It's one of those times of the year where we really want to be paying attention to these things. And so before we get started, though, I get the distinct pleasure to introduce you to what I call Team Cyber Strong, Cyber Strong, Cyber Strong. And then I get the privilege to introduce you to the owner and founder of Northwest Computer Solutions, my friend and partner, James Hansen, who's going to be speaking about the small business owner's entrepreneurial journey. After that, we have my good friend and cyber liability guru, Mr. Jeremy Duncan with Country Financial, and he's going to be talking about the small business owner's need for cyber liability insurance. And then last but not least, the one and only Sean Schwartz with the best hair in the business with Heritage Bank. And he's going to talk about the small business owner being a target and what can be done in the event of fraudulent activity. And so, as you can see, we're going to talk about cybersecurity, business, IT, but also everything in between and adjacent. So, first things first, I'm going to start with Mr. James Hansen because he's here live and direct with me today at Monte Studios. James, thank you for coming
Well,
on
thank
this.
you for inviting me.
Yes. I appreciate you coming because your story has always been one that inspired me directly. And so, can you tell us a little bit about Northwest Computer Solutions, why our clients chose to partner with us over the last 35 years, and then how were you able to scale up leveraging technology from solopreneur to 200 plus clients nationwide? And I actually, you know what, that was a mouthful. So let me just start with question one.
All
Tell us a
right.
little bit about Northwest Computer Solutions.
All right. Well, I started it when I was working another job, as most entrepreneurs do. You work a day job and then you develop the business on the side. And once it gets to the point where you're making enough money, I made the transition back in 1989. So it's been a minute, and the business has certainly evolved over the years. When we hit 2020, COVID was a disaster for a lot of businesses, but for IT, it was the actual impetus for us to really focus on making a transition as the country got used to working remotely and having to be able to support users fully remotely. It was a great opportunity for us. And that was at a point where I was at about 150, 200K in annual revenue. I made the decision to partner with an organization called the 20, which is a conglomerate of different MSPs, managed service providers nationwide, and put together a best-in-class help desk. So we're able to offer a 24/7 by 7, 365-day a year live answer help desk based in the United States. So that really helped leverage what we can do because our clients then can call day or night whenever there's a problem. A technician will pick up the phone in typically about a minute to a minute and a half and be able to start troubleshooting a problem.
Mm.
And that transformation that was forced upon us in 2020 was really that point. And from then until now, we've grown to $1 million in revenue and we're continuing to grow. AJ's being a big part of that now, reaching out to all of you to enlighten and let you know what is available.
Thank you for my paycheck, boss. I appreciate you. So then, why would you say that our clients decided to partner with you? Because there's just so many IT professionals out there, but why Northwest Computer Solutions?
Well, one of the challenges most managed service providers have is they have a very restrictive, this is what is in scope, and this is what we'll do for your monthly fee. And we've transitioned that to more align it with our clients' goals as far as a managed IT department. What we want to have is our goals aligned with yours. The better we do our job, the more predictable and more productive your employees are going to be. And so, if we aren't charging you for things that are out of scope, that's how most MSPs make most of their revenue. And so we amortize ours over the life of the contract that we're looking for. That way, there are no surprises. You get a monthly bill, that's going to be your cost for the month for your IT services. An important distinction. And so it really helps align our goals because our clients know when they sign up and have our full IT managed IT department that they're paying one monthly bill and there aren't going to be surprises.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like that collaboration with the 20, allowing you to leverage the resources is what helped with the MID model, which most of the people on this call have probably heard me talk about. We want to be your managed IT department, but it sounds like that was essential to the scale up to, 100 or a million plus dollars.
Yes, it's one of those things you hit a certain point where you can't service any more additional clients, so you have to be able to grow. And with our model, we're able to add technicians basically based on the number of units. So it's a very predictable pattern that allows us to say, oh, we're bringing on a client with 100 end users. We can set it up, provision it, and make sure that we have that scalability available. And it makes it very nice when we're a part of a organization that has $400 million in revenue. So we're a part of a much larger organization, and it allows us to do things that a lot of local providers aren't able to do.
Hmm. Well, I know that the 20 is a $400 million MSP with 375 plus employees, and that's what allows the provision of the 24/7 proactive monitoring and management in tandem with them. But going back to your point prior, as far as the typical IT company and maybe some of the pitfalls and hidden costs were maybe not in alignment, can you maybe speak a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. So a typical MSP will give you a statement of work. That's the legal name of it. It says, we will be doing this for you for this fee. And anything that is not listed in that statement of work is out of scope. And that's where most MSPs make their money because that's billable time for them. That's a project. Oh, you want to move your office from the old building that you're in to the new one. That's going to be a project. We'll do the planning. We'll bring in as many people and as much time as we can to inflate those projects for you. Our goal is to do it as quickly and efficiently as possible, and we charge by the location. So if you have one location and you're moving, we'll accommodate that move and work with you to transition and plan. And we really want to manage the risk and also be involved in the planning so that, if you know that it's not going to cost you an exorbitant fee to get us involved, then we can get in there, help make sure everything goes in correctly, smoothly, and right. It's minimizing any kind of, oh, surprises. Oh, we didn't really think about that, but now that we
Hmm.
need to add it, oh, it's after the build was done, it's going to be much more expensive. So if you bring us in to help even through the blueprint and contract phases, we can work with the general contractors, the low voltage engineers to make sure we get data jacks in the right locations because we understand how that workflow goes and where you need to put things. And an architect's not going to do that. Electrical contractor's not necessarily going to do that, but we understand what a business needs from an IT perspective to be successful.
Well, and that's because you're the professional, and so surprises. I want to emphasize on that word surprise. I don't know that we as entrepreneurs necessarily always like surprises, and so I would say that predictability is probably the key to the success you've had so far. And in the traditional MSP model, there just isn't a lot because it's based off of a specific scope of work, and when you're outside of that, it's additional costs, and then all these extra fees start to kick in, and so. I appreciate you sharing because that makes total sense on why you're able to scale up is because you have the backing of a larger organization to provide a service that not everybody can for 24/7, 365. And so, again, I really just appreciate you sharing because the purpose of that, you all, is to talk about the entrepreneurial journey from the small business owner's mindset. And James has been able to successfully do that over the last 35 years, which is what, at least speaking for myself, I definitely strive for. But now is where we switch over to my segment and we talk about the small business owner's journey of technology because when we're scaling up and we're building our businesses, we need all different kinds of IT, right? And not necessarily just cybersecurity, because when we get the proper infrastructure in place, well, that's the time for the cybersecurity. But I think it's really important to understand the actual things that we need in order to scale up. And so now I'm going to transition to a segment that I call all the things. And feel free to chime in at any time, James, if you'd like, because we know we need technology, but who really knows what kind? And when is a good time to buy it? What does a good price point even look like? And then how do we stream it all to work together so that they integrate? That's a magical word in the world of technology is integration. And the reality is that technology is this endless sea of services and providers. And if you go too far out or too deep, you can drown out there very easily. And so now we know we need all these things, right? Because we're more dependent on technology today than ever before. But who can afford the downtime of figuring all this out? Nobody, right? Nobody. And that's why it's outsourced to people like James and I. And that's what we do with Northwest Computer Solutions is we source it, we provision it so it just shows up and works, and then we proactively monitor and manage it as your managed IT department. And it's our responsibility to do so 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. And you're going to hear me say that a lot because, again, not everybody can do that. But first things first, I'm going to share this journey we want to go through in order of priority to build our internal infrastructure of technology supporting our target revenue goals. We went into business to focus on a certain thing, and in order to get that thing off the ground, we need all these things. And so let me just start from the top, which is the computer. So for starters, we have our computer, everything spins off the computer, so it's important to pick the right one. Now you could go on Amazon, eBay, or Costco and just pick one up, but then you got to research all the different programs you're going to need in order to build your business. Wouldn't it be nice if it just showed up with everything you need on it? And that is exactly how the large companies do it. When they issue devices, that's the exact experience that they want for the employees. So it's turnkey, get them up and running quickly, right? Now we have our computer, but we're going to need to power it up using the internet. And there are multiple providers out there, but the important thing is whether or not you're in the network. which usually starts with the address, right? And that address ties to the local providers that, of course, can provide the internet, but they also have a number of other services too. Not all technology plays nice together. So the magic word, again, in cases like this, integration, which brings me to our next piece of technology, which is your customer relationship management software, also known as a CRM. Long gone are the days of the infamous Excel spreadsheet, which we all know and love, except for my wife when I'm doing the bills. But these days, a good CRM will allow all the data to come together in order to market to your people and start building a funnel. A good CRM is going to integrate with the majority of your hardware and software from marketing to sales, operations to customer service, and even billing. So your CRM is probably one of the most important pieces of technology in your business. I heard it said once that if you can measure it, you can manage it, and that's exactly what the CRM allows for you to do. Okay, so now we have our CRM, we have our database. Well, now we have to communicate. Communication is the key to all success, and a good VoIP phone system will allow us to communicate with our customers quickly. VoIP phone systems have come a long way from the old analog telephone lines that the FCC is going to be doing away with soon here, known as analog. But now it's running over the internet, which is actually near and dear to my heart because that's the beginnings of my technology journey personally in my career. But I just recall going from these old brick phones to using it on the computer. And now we can make calls and texts from the computer and send, and it's called a soft phone. And then, of course, that same app will go on your phone. So now you can put it on your cell phone, and then it's not going to give away your personal cell number because it's going to be tied to your business number. And a quick tip, depending on the provider, they can even get rid of the infamous robocalls that we all get from time to time. But there's an endless supply of vendors when it comes to a good VoIP phone system. So I tend to lean into those that have the best user experience at the most affordable prices. And these phone systems, they can get complicated depending on the provider you go with. And so I may or may not put together another webinar with some of my preferred internet and voice providers. Now, the next part we're going to talk about is email. So you can call people, you can text people, but email is a very viable form of communication today. It's not all about phones and texts. It's just another way to communicate with them. But we tend to favor Microsoft 365 products because they come with enterprise grade security. There is another provider you can get email from, but they tend to share your information on the back end. So we tend to lead towards Microsoft 365, especially with the addition of AI through Copilot. Because AI is on the rise. It's a great way to reduce time on remedial tasks, allowing us to accomplish more in less time. And leveraging Copilot within the suite of Microsoft products is going to allow you to pull data from the Microsoft environment and do so in a way that accommodates whatever need that you might have. Now, the topic of AI governance is a huge one in the world of AI today. So I'll save that topic for another webinar. I know we were maybe talking in the month of February with my buddy AJ Green and Abe Noya, but that's to be continued. Just know that there is a way to implement AI with what you're already doing and do it in a simple and safe way. Okay.
And that's something you can lean into and use every day. Yesterday, you know, when you talk to a client and they say, "Oh, I really don't need this service," or "I don't need that," or "I don't need that," and got an email yesterday, "Oh, should I be concerned?" One of my employees clicked on the link, gave up their credentials, and we're wondering what might happen with that. And my initial response is, well, these are why we told you these are services that are recommended. Used Copilot to actually change it from, I told you so conversation to an empathetic conversation. So depending on your speaking style, it it allows you to soften things up or even create text around a topic. So it gives you ideas that make life a lot easier for you. Because not all of us are great at the written dialogue, so
I
yeah.
know exactly who you're talking about. I'm checking it inside. I was copied on the email.
Yep.
But yeah, so leveraging AI in a way that works for you. Again, maybe a separate conversation on it with Mr. Green, Mr. Noya. But in the meantime, getting back to the tech journey, we have our email and we want to connect it to the domain. right? Because a website is essential for business. It doesn't cost much depending on the way you go to get that license to connect it to the domain. But it's aesthetically in the world of business with all this marketing we do as entrepreneurs, it's nice to have it tied to the domain, right? I'll just say it that way. Hopefully that's PC.
Well, yes, and the other thing we can do is if you own your own domain, you can transfer your domain to different providers. If you have a Comcast or a address and you change to Ziply, well, your Comcast address is going to go away. So if you build a brand and your email address is at comcast.net and you move locations and now you're at Ziply, you've got a problem there. So owning your own domain is inexpensive and it also allows us to track compromises of usernames and passwords.
Mm.
So there are many additional benefits to uh, that owning your own domain.
Perfect. Well, and then that domain ties to the website, which we do help with managed websites and just making it turnkey for people. But really, the website, the purpose of the website is marketing, and it gives a story of how you support your people with whatever it is that you do. And so it's extremely important, which, my friend Titonian Wallace can tell you all about Witness Age Media. But moving on to cloud integration. Now that we have the infrastructure set up, we want to migrate as much as we can to the cloud, just in case one of the devices goes down for whatever reason. We have access to it in the cloud to put it on another device. And it also helps with workflow when it comes to using multiple devices, and you can just easily streamline the process of the workflow through the ability of remote ability. And for those mid-market companies with multiple locations, it's just really nice to have everything you need without having to go to each individual site. But most importantly, it's just a key ingredient to a much broader topic, which is disaster recovery and business continuity. Having a strategy is extremely important, which is what we put an emphasis on with risk management. We're going to start to slowly tie this into cybersecurity soon here, but starting with a backup strategy. I hear you kind of, are you wanting to?
Well, yeah, with any business, some of the biggest risks are your employees either accidentally deleting data or maliciously moving data from your site if they're planning on changing jobs.
Hmm.
If you have a physical building where you have your employees stationed, and say it's in a main street on Hillsborough, and one building a couple doors down catches fire and it burns through a number of them. If you don't have a strategy where your data is stored off-site, if it's stored locally, then that becomes a real problem to recover from.
Yep, I actually saw that in the headlines. That's a very real story you just shared, and know the gentleman who the building was tied to
Hmm.
as well. And fortunately, we were able to talk about some things in place to help him out. But that recovery plan, going to that piece, a data recovery plan is basically just a documented strategy that outlines how a business will restore that data and the IT systems after disruptions such as this fire that we're talking about. And so having that recovery plan is essential. But that cybersecurity piece, now we're going to kind of delve into that a little bit because this is where it starts getting fun. We've developed the internal infrastructure with all the things, but we have to secure it because the data equates to dollars in the world of business. And so securing the data is extremely important, and we have to keep our eyes on it 24/7, 365. There's those numbers again. And we can't risk intruders coming in with the rise of AI. They're using things like spam GT to increase the cyber threats, and some of the stats you're going to see here on this next slide are just downright staggering. So I'm actually going to leave that one to James though, because well, that's something he does really well with. So I call this cybersecurity stories with James Hansen's. And then I have a particular favor I'm going to ask for because I was actually at a Washington County Chamber meeting for Hillsborough Wellness. And this is actually where you called me because you had been working all night because you were able to prevent a data breach from happening real time. And this is
Hmm.
just a few months ago, guys. This happens every day in our world. But can you share us a little bit about that story on the VPN
Oh,
tank?
certainly. And this one, in this particular instance, we had an employee that works remotely for the company, and they're a night owl. So they work very effectively from 6 p.m. to 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And this particular employee on a Friday night finished work actually about 12:20 in the morning on Saturday, and she was using the VPN to connect to her office. And what happened is she just closed her laptop lid, left the VPN open and running, and it was hijacked. And that is something that's kind of scary. There's some technical details that I won't bore you with, but a bad guy was able to get into the network. And what happened was we have a product called endpoint detection on all of the devices in the network, and there was a elevation of privilege. Somebody was trying to make themselves an administrator on the network to get access to the information. That triggered an alert at 12:21, so a minute into the attack. And at that point, it also was attempted on a second device. So our Security Operations Center initiated a kind of an iron dome. They block and isolate every computer on the network to limit the attack surface, and we were able to effectively isolate the attacker, keep them out before they were able to get to the second step in the attack. So, if somebody broke in the front door, essentially we saw them, we locked everything down, and then we're able to kick them out. So it allowed us to, you know, avert a catastrophe because it's in the middle of the night and we were having people that monitor it 24/7 for you. And that's part of the Security Operations Center's job. They look for abnormal patterns and things like that. When something like that comes up, then we're able to act on it immediately. And I waited till 7 o'clock in the morning to contact the business owner. And we met at the location and started the resolution and investigation process on the Saturday. So it's very important that these services be tied together so that you're alerted before a breach turns into data exfiltration, where something bad information gets taken away from the company, or they set up and lurk in your network and find out what you do, how you do it, and then start sending out, say, emails on your behalf with invoices for your to your clients with new banking information. So there are a lot of different ways that people can attack you. And this one was done overseas. Russia was involved in this particular attack, so we have to be vigilant.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that story because, in a lot of cases like this, again, this happens every day in our world, guys. These are kind of the unsung heroes that are saving the day behind the scenes, and so I appreciate you sharing that. He's too modest to share this, but the guy was up at 12:06 in the morning on site till about 11:30 p.m. And fortunately, we were able to catch it. But that's the beauty of having a local IT provider that can be responsive and obviously very competent at what he does. So I appreciate you sharing that,
Okay.
James. I'm going to transition a little bit to the importance of why that's such a big deal for this company you're talking about, because there are industry specific compliance regulations that are required in these specific industries when it comes to something of that nature. And so, can you speak a little bit to compliance regulations, including not only the industry specific, but also PCI and how we take our payment card
Okay.
processing?
Yeah, certainly. As we've got on the screen right there, the accounting IRS publication 5708 sets out a framework for medium to large size accounting firms as far as what they should do, written information security plan, and the things that really every CPA, every accounting firm, every bookkeeping firm should be doing. And they clearly call out for services or protections that most people can't put together economically on their own, and that's why we're here. Healthcare, the HIPAA compliance is really important because customers' personal medical information shouldn't be shared. Legal and financial both have very stringent requirements. If you're in a divorce attorney, you've got full financial information and history on your client. If your law firm is breached, uh, that can really set you up for a class action lawsuit by another law firm representing your now former clients against you. And this happened in New Jersey, where law firm was breached, six attorney law firm, and they're now part of a $6 million lawsuit seeking damages from their former clients. So having proper controls and insurance and coverage for you, because if things go sideways and you have not been doing the proper security measures and all of that, your cyber liability insurance may not pay out, and then you could be on the hook for that.
That is actually something I just had a conversation about literally last week. It was just an unfortunate event where, someone suffered from a breach. It actually came through a third-party vendor, but the vendor is so large that there was no way for this small business owner to take them to court. And so they leaned into their cyber liability insurance policy, and unfortunately, they were denied on that claim and just out on that money. And so that actually is a good segue to our next conversation because we tend to build our tech stack and our cybersecurity around the underwriting process and the top 12 controls that the insurance company might have for us. Because ideally, you want to have the proper cybersecurity in place, and that's line of defense number one. We don't want them to come in, but if something does happen to where maybe we weren't able to actually apply the professional recommendation within the organization. Line of defense number two would be cyber liability insurance. And so cyber liability is huge. There are certain controls we want to adhere to because those companies require it. And so when it comes to the cyber liability insurance coverage being important, who better to share with us that than Mr. Jeremy Duncan of Country Financial? Jeremy, go ahead and take it away, buddy.
All right. Thanks, AJ. Man, some of those the stories that you and James shared there are pretty shocking, aren't they? Uh, and one that James had mentioned in a conversation earlier this week is about just how many businesses end up having to close their doors after a breach event. It's just pretty staggering when you think about what that risk really means to a business.
Yeah,
Um,
and that
yeah.
statistic, 60% of businesses that have a breach close within 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's just absolutely wild. Um, so I looking at the picture there, it's only a few years old, and there's a whole lot less gray hair in the beard, and just kind of goes to show how time goes by. But along those lines, I've been
You
an
have to talk
agent.
to Sean.
Yeah.
He's the hair specialist.
There.
I'm sorry, I'm
So
gonna shut up now. Go ahead, go
yeah.
ahead.
So I've been an insurance agent with Country Financial for over 22 years now, helping my clients with all of their insurance needs. And over that time, think about just how much it has radically changed in our world. Unfortunately, both consumers and insurers have been slow to adapt to that changing world. For example, when I started back in 2003 and was speaking with someone about, say, auto insurance, the most common bodily injury coverage level was 100,000 per person, 300,000 per occurrence. Well, guess what? That's still considered the standard, what the most homeowners have on their auto insurance. Yet the costs of cars and medical care and really the scale of insurance claims has dramatically ballooned. Yet folks are protecting themselves like it's still 2003. So it's very much the same thing when it comes to business owners setting up their company's insurance protection plans. Instead of looking at data like what AJ and James are offering about real risks businesses face today, they're instead just purchasing policies that are merely compliant with what their landlord may require for their lease or what the state requires for them to get their license as a contractor or a permit. The reality is that these insurance policies are a lifeline for business when things go wrong. And making the right decisions in advance can be the difference between a business that continues and one that fails. Business owners need to be better risk managers and recognize these new waves of risks that cyber attacks bring to businesses of all sizes. We've already heard today about the tremendous value that IT professionals can bring to a business to help protect them from cyber attacks ever happening. With pros like James and AJ in your corner, a business can go a long ways towards preventing an attack. But just like that first story about the employee working late at night, it only takes a slightest slip up to lead to an attack. So where I'm going to pick up is what happens next. What do we do when the attack happens? And more precisely, how can a proper cyber liability policy protect your business? All right, so AJ, can you move to the next slide? All right, perfect. And actually, could you move to the other one I gave you? Sorry. Yeah, perfect. While we sincerely hope that we never find ourselves dealing with a cyber incident, we know that many businesses will. And that means that we all need to be prepared with a response. Every business should be working with their IT support teams to ready themselves. That's a given. But the business needs to also have a cyber incident response plan in place. So as you see here, the way the company responds to a cyber incident can make or break its financial and reputational stability. And so having an effective cyber incident response plan, it's going to require coordination across the company, not just from leadership, but it really needs to involve everybody top to bottom. And so you need to specifically outline and make sure everyone understands who is part of the cyber incident response team, what roles and responsibilities to each of the response team members have, how will the company's key functions continue through the incident, how will critical workplace decisions be made, when and how to inform stakeholders and potentially the public, what regulations must be followed, and when and how to seek assistance from outside parties like law enforcement and insurance professionals. Finally, how will the incident be investigated, and what forensic activities will be leveraged to identify the cause and prevent future incidents. Like things like this are when the breach has happened, are really going to help to limit the damage potentially if there's a solid plan in place. But then, of course, we have the insurance protections, hopefully, to be able to step in. Businesses, they need to have this response plan dialed in and hopefully never used. But if the cyber incident does occur, a prepared business will have a leg up and have the best chance of getting through the storm. So let's talk a bit about insurance protections that are available to businesses. Cyber liability coverage in the US has been around for 25 to 28 years, originating back in the late 90s. The first widely recognized cyber insurance policy was launched way back in 97 when AIG introduced a internet security liability policy aimed at protecting businesses engaged in e-commerce from risks like data theft and online fraud. Before that, some early forms of coverage existed there in the 90s under professional liability policies or errors in data processing policies, but these were very limited and focused on media or software risks only. The concept evolved significantly in the early 2000s, adding coverage for unauthorized access, network security breaches, and eventually first-party protections like business interruption and cyber extortion. Since the early days of cyber liability coverage, policies have evolved significantly and are now designed not just for businesses in the e-commerce space, but really are designed to protect all businesses, large and small. Even small businesses that deal primarily offline and face-to-face communications with clients increasingly possess sensitive data from their clientele and certainly maintain an online footprint for their own financial records. Today's policies are well crafted to respond to the specific risks that businesses face from cyber attack. So as with most liability policies, there are two sides of the coin, so to speak: first-party coverage or damage sustained to your own business, and third-party coverage or damage to the others. Let's look at the next slide now, or go back to that other slide. Yeah, perfect. And this breaks down exactly what a cyber liability policy is designed to cover today. You look at that first column there, we see the first party coverage. Again, that's damage that your business has sustained following a cyber incident. So it's kind of go through it. There's coverage for data breach response. That includes things like costs for forensic investigation, notification, credit monitoring. Next, there's been business interruption. When the cyber incident occurs, everything is disrupted, even with a solid plan in place. This will provide coverage for lost income and extra expenses due to the cyber attack or system outage. I'd also point out that this is quite often a coverage that business owners have neglected to address on their policies, and not just for cyber risks. Whether there's been a cyber attack, a burst water pipe, or a fire, business interruption coverage is crucial to keep your business on track while normal business operations are disrupted. I mean, this is definitely a big talking point whenever I'm talking to clients, whether we're just talking about general liability or cyberspace. Next up, we've got data recovery and restoration. Just as it sounds, coverage for expenses to restore your data and systems. Next, crisis management and PR. At these moments, your company's reputation is on the line. So the policies assist with costs associated with reputation management and communication with media and public. Now we've got regulatory fines and penalties. Some policies out there will even be able to cover the fines and penalties that may arise from your compliance failures that led to the incident. Finally, the media liability to protect against claims for copyright infringement, defamation, or privacy violations. I mean, pretty comprehensive to be sure. That's a good summary of the first party coverage response from cyber liability policies. But then on the other side of the coin, the third party coverage, there's critical protection provided as well. Where these are really needed is for the fines related to client data breaches, defense and settlement costs for failing to protect data, and defense costs from judgments and lawsuits. All right, so considering how massive of a risk this represents and the stakes are so high for a business, I mean, it would be a shock to most business owners to learn that cyber liability protection is surprisingly affordable. Frankly, every time I create a quote for a client, I have to double check that I didn't enter something wrong, and since the cost is far less than it seems like it should be. I mean, for the past few years, insurance premiums for our health insurance, property insurance, auto, and business insurance policies has just been steadily going up and up and up. But meanwhile, cyber liability options remain very affordable. Now, different businesses have different risk levels. For instance, ones that have access to personally identifiable information for their clients, like social security numbers, are at higher risk. And the size and the type of the business and number of employees all factor into the cost. But one of the carriers that we work with for cyber liability coverage has a $1 million limit starting around $300 a year. Now, the costs will, of course, vary business to business, and insurers are going to underwrite each business. So the businesses that possess that personally identifiable information and client's credit card and banking information, they'll certainly expect to pay a higher premium. But it's helpful to illustrate that getting cyber liability protection is not a major expenditure, and every business should have the coverage in place. So here's what I would encourage every business owner or decision maker to do today. Talk to your insurance agent, schedule a review with them, review all of your protection plan, and make sure that you have cyber liability coverage in place. I mean, it could be one of the best risk management decisions that you make. So I'm going to wrap it up there and send it back to you, AJ.
Perfect. Appreciate you sharing with us, Jeremy. Again, these are really all the things when you think about it, because it's not just about cybersecurity. We have to develop the infrastructure first, and so these are the key components on how do we prepare those things, why do we prepare those things, and then next I'm going to transition it to last but not least, Mr. Sean Schwartz, so he can talk with us about the small business owners' options for prevention should fraudulent activity actually take place. So, Sean, why don't you go ahead and take us away?
Thanks, AJ. I want to start with telling a quick story here. This is a real conversation that I had literally just yesterday with a business owner. We were talking and sharing stories and getting an update on business. And actually, we were talking about this subject exactly. Cybersecurity, fraud, the use of AI, different ways that businesses could be potentially compromised. This business owner shared a story with me about a opportunity that popped up in his inbox. There was an existing thread with him and his internet carrier, and at some point, that thread turned into a request for payment. For some reason, they said that they are now partnering with Apple and that they need to receive payment, and then that payment needs to be made with a $500 Apple gift card. And then he could get special services X, Y, and Z. This was directly in an email thread that had already been happening. So, without any question or hesitation, this business owner went and purchased an Apple card, paid this $500 bill that he thought he had with this Apple card. and then got a call from his internet provider maybe a few days later asking why his internet bill hasn't been paid. He says, "What are you talking about? I paid my bill." And only then is when he found out that he had just been scammed, and this was a situation where he's out some money. That leads to the fact that fraud looks very, very normal. Scams look very, very normal, and we are all susceptible to being caught. Now, why are businesses like ours, like yours, susceptible to these type of situations, these cyber scams, this fraud that's happening? It's because businesses like yours, businesses like ours, they have predictable money cycles. You may have a shared inbox. You may have a smaller team than the enterprise businesses out there. All of those lead you to possible opportunities for compromise, for a cyber attack to go through, whether it's big or whether it's small. There's always that opportunity for an attacker to attack. And they exploit your trust with your clients, with your employees, and they exploit the timing, the predictable cycles. Now, 2024, the ICS3, they posted that there was 16.6 billion losses. The ICS3 is the Internet Cybersecurity Division of the SBI. That's 16.6 billion with a B in 24. The FTC posted that there were 12.5 billion in losses. That's up 60%. 60% of your small businesses saw an increase of fraud in 2025. It's a growing number and it's a real threat. Now, what are these threats that we're going to see? I shared an example at the beginning here of a threat that's called business email compromise, where a bad actor gains access to your inbox and sits and waits and watches, looking for the perfect time to jump in and say, "Hey, we're going to change this here. Do this, do this, do this, send it here." It looks real, it looks legit, but it's not. It's completely fake, and you have to be looking out for those type of situations. Another incredible common one that we see is a phishing scam or a spoofing scam, where you see an email that looks real. This is a situation similar to the one that James heard earlier. You get an email that looks completely real from an email address that looks completely legitimate, and then it says, "Click here to access your account. Click here to make this payment." And then that all of a sudden opens up the gates for these bad actors in the background to come in and infiltrate your system. Another very similar one is a vendor payment retraction, where similar to business email compromise or spoofing, they're kind of watching and waiting for the right time to jump in and create a fake invoice or a fake banking update and says, "Hey, you know what? We changed banks. We were with Bank A first, but we just switched over to Bank B. Please send your next vendor, your payment for the services to this other bank." And again, similar to that story I opened up with, you get a call from your partner, your vendor that you've been working with saying, "Hey, where's that payment for this shipment that we just sent to you?" And then you say, "But I made that." And then you find out that you sent that to who knows where. It's all over the place. And then finally, this is the tried and true. This is one that we've always heard and one that is still out there. Check fraud. You may put a check in the mail to one of your vendors because that's A, the only way you still pay, or B, the only way they accept payments. Somebody takes that check out of the mail and wash the name off of it, wash the amount, make subtle modifications, and it can be really tricky because if you're not watching closely, that check clears, that check that you expected to clear clears, and all of a sudden maybe months later, when you're reconciling your accounts, you find out that it did not go where it needs to go. And then finally, with the update in technologies that we have, mobile check deposit is being abused because those checks aren't being reviewed in real time by a professional to notice these red flags that us as banking professionals have been trained to see. And it can be deposited via mobile check deposit, a fake check, a fraudulent check, lots of opportunity for there. Now, as business owners, as people that are moving money constantly, what should we be looking for? How do we look out for this type of thing? Because everything I've described now is not an insurance policy. It's not necessarily that AJ and his team is looking out for. These are the things that you as a business owner should be looking out for. So in some of the scenarios that I shared, there may have been red flags that you heard or things that you could think of. So it may seem a little redundant, but if there's any change in the information to the ACH or wire, any change to the place that you're sending the money, that starts raising up that red flag. Why is that change happening? Is this a change that I know about? Is this a change that I'm anticipating or expecting? That should be something to look out for. Misspelled emails or domain names. Look diligently at the sender, where that came from. Is it coming from at Microsoft.com or is it coming from at Microsoft with an R next to an N to make it look like an M instead, or to make it look like an M instead of actually an M? Those are subtle things that the bad actors will do to make it seem like that they are a legitimate vendor or domain name, where they'll spoof your clients. Maybe it's a W, two V's next to each other when your client's name starts with a W or your vendor's name starts with a W. Email only communication. They're emailing you, they're talking to you, they're asking for money, and when you say, "Hey, will you call me?" uh, they refuse. They say, "No, we can't call," whether it's because I'm busy, I'm out of town, I'm at my mom's house, I'm in the hospital, your grandma's in the hospital, I can't talk right now, please send money. Those are all things that should be red flags for you. Urgency, secrecy, overpayment refunds. Acting fast. The urgency is something that these bad actors are counting on. They don't want to give you time to think. They want the pressure on. They want you to think that there will be negative implications if you do not send this money right now. And then
Mm.
the overpayment is one there that I mentioned. A lot of times they will say, we're going to send you some money, but it's a little bit extra. Please send the extra back. It's going to cover your shipping charges or this or that, or it was a mistake. I was supposed to send you $1,000, but I accidentally sent you $10,000. Please send back the extra nine. And what's going to
Mm.
happen? It's going to get caught that that's a bad payment. Your bank is going to pull back that 10,000, but what did you just do? You just sent out nine. And now your business is in the hole and on the hook for $9,000 for a
Oh my God.
transaction that was not valid.
That, that's wild. One, they're getting really good at their line of work these days. And so just really appreciate you sharing. This is the part where we got 5 minutes coming to the top of the hour. Going to transition a little bit. Thank you for sharing, but also Jeremy, James as well. And, speaking of sharing, I just wanted to share this slide with everyone in case you have any questions, because oftentimes in a setting like this, you might want to ask a few, but the reality of it is there's so much going on here that I would just encourage you to take down this information. If you have questions, schedule a free consultation with any one of us. I'm sure that we can help for sure, and just strongly encourage that. Could be a coffee or lunch, maybe even a happy hour, but we live in a funny time where being an entrepreneur, especially in the state of Oregon, is extremely hard. And we have to work hard to build our businesses. We have to work equally hard to protect it, and we have to stick together and help each other. And so, all that to say, I'm looking forward to meeting with each and every one of you on this call. I'm looking forward. Hopefully, you guys like this and watch it on the Washington County Chamber's YouTube channel, as well as Northwest Computer Solutions. We're on all platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And I asked from all our speakers today, so you could drop your contact information, scheduling links if you have them, and some collateral too in the chat. So that way, people can take some value in the information, but also take it with them in case they need to share it with some folks. I know there's someone in the chat that actually had someone experience the exact scenario that James was talking about. And so I'm just going to kind of leave this up here for a second. Would you guys mind dropping your info in the chat, please? Perfect. And then I'll go ahead and do the same with mine. But all that to say that we do thank you again for joining us on this episode of the Washington County Chamber's Small Business Solutions series, where we talked about cybersecurity, we talked about business, and everything in between. Again, one more time, please remember to follow us in the Washington County Chamber, the growth coach of Greater Portland Metro area, on all social media platforms. And then until next time, I'll probably see you at a chamber event near you. So, do you have anything else you want to say on that? Well,
One of the important things though, as an entrepreneur, as you can see, we have a team here, and you want your IT talking to your insurance, talking to your banker, so that you have those connections. They are familiar with who you're working with, and if there's ever an incident, you've already got a team that's assembled. They're comfortable with each other, so having that team have your back is one of the biggest advantages in making this all happen.
mm, wise words from a wise man. Thank you for
All right,
sharing,
thank you.
sir. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing now. But yeah, thank you all again for coming out, showing some love, and I'm looking forward to those coffees and lunches. Deanna?
Excellent. Thank you so much, AJ. Thank you very much to all of our presenters. Truly appreciate everybody joining us. And again, thank you for a very informative presentation. And we will see you next time. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.